Hey, welcome out to Mastermind Monday. My name is Joshua, and I'll be our host today. I have sad news. My buddies are not here today. Normally, we'd have Brady over here and Josiah over here, and we end up answering the questions that you may have in regards to starting your own business. But today, we are giving a sneak peek of what our desirable future after our 1 year of free Mastermind Mondays are over. Basically, I'll be inviting different individuals in the pressure washing space that have what I would say have grown very successful businesses, and then we will be diving in and finding out the who and the why behind the what they do. And so, in life, I believe that pressure washing or any type of business that you're starting, the how to is a small part in comparison to the mindset that's required in order to do anything successfully. And so it is our goal to provide services to you that help you get through the biggest challenges that we all face. And that is how we face our problems, or our difficulties, or our past, or our present, so we can have the best version of ourselves showing up each day. So if you're here today, I want to thank you for showing up. If you have a question for our guest today, you are welcome to put it in the chat. And then if you have somebody that you would like for me to invite onto the show, I ask that you go ahead and put their name first and last on the back, maybe what pressure washing company they're a part of. I would love to invite other successful pressure washing companies on to the show where we can dive into a little bit of like their habits, their failures, their successes, where we can provide more value inside of our culture and our community. And the thought is this: if the leader gets better, we all get better. And if we all get better, our societies, our families, our homes get a lot better. And so please, if you're watching later on in the future, if it's 2026 and you're just seeing it, throw it in the chat. We'll get notified, and I would love to invite those individuals onto the show. But for today, I've got a special guest. His name is Jason Geiman. And Jason, if I mispronounce your name, I want you to correct me as soon as we let you in. But he has, in many ways, I watched him prior to really launching Browns and watching YouTube videos on how to start a pressure washing company. And so I'd like to bring Jason into the room. So Jason, welcome out.
Thanks for having me. And you did get my name right, which is good. So that's awesome. So it is fun to be in here and helping you guys help other people, because that is my number one goal. So
Awesome. I honor you. I appreciate the work that you've done in growing a successful business, and also the character. We'll go into where we first met each other, maybe later on here in a few minutes. But where do you live? Would you let everyone know what city, state you're from?
So I'm actually in Northern Kentucky, in Boone County, Kentucky, Burlington, Kentucky. It's a suburb of Cincinnati. So I'm in the tri-state of, Northern Kentucky, Southern Ohio, and Southern Indiana. So that was my service area when I owned my pressure washing business.
Awesome. And so we'll go ahead and get started. And the first question, Jason, is always the most difficult question that we're going to ask. And just FYI, anybody that's watching, Jason, have you been given a list of questions that you're prepared to answer?
Nope, I have not. And actually, Josh asked me about this beforehand. And I said, when I do my interviews, I always like to be this way. So that way you get to know me better, or we all get to know each other better. So
awesome. Okay. So Jason, first question, always the most difficult. Who is Jason?
So I am a father of two girls. I have a beautiful wife that we've been married for 16 years, will be 17 years coming up here in October.
Let's go.
I was a full-time fireman way back when. I was actually a diesel mechanic before that. I went to college for being a diesel mechanic, so I'm decent with my hands. I've always been good with my hands. I've been through that process. I became a full-time fireman. I was a full-time fireman for 13 years. I've been on water rescue. I'm actually still a volunteer on an all-volunteer organization for water rescue, Boone County Water Rescue. And so I am a person that I love to help other people grow. I had started my pressure washing business and I grew it to over $1 million a year. And then when I sold it, and then this is when I started to teach people how to start and grow successful pressure washing businesses.
Man, I did not know all of that. I want to thank you for serving your community as a fireman. I find that there's a lot of pressure washing companies that also serve inside of volunteer and as firemen. And so, what do you think is so attractive from firemen to launch or start their own pressure washing company? Do you think there's something connected there?
Yeah, I think there is. One of the things is where I worked at, we were poor. We didn't get paid a lot. So that was, and then you have 2 days off. You know, you work 24 on and you have 2 days off. And a lot of firemen are type A personalities anyway. So you kind of have that mentality of what you need to start a pressure washing business.
Gotcha. And so when you were a kid, was the dream to be a fireman? Was the dream to be a pressure washer? When you were a child, let's dig into that for a second. What was your hope as far as like what did you want to do with your life?
So it had nothing to do with a fireman. It had nothing to do with being a pressure washer. I wanted to be a mechanic, to be honest. I kind of went to mechanic school for it. That was kind of my goal. I was actually homeschooled. So I was homeschooled from second grade on. And this is when homeschool wasn't popular back then either. So if you know, I actually went to a vocational school my junior and senior year. I got a full ride. So I was planning on being a mechanic was my life dreams.
Now, if for anybody that's viewing and they don't know anything about homeschooling, how would you summarize a homeschooler's life experiences? How would you sum it up?
Awesomeness. So we actually homeschool our kids. We sent them back to public school last year and we're bringing them back next year. I think that homeschooling is a way that you can teach your kid on what they love to do, right? If your kid loves something, you can give them all they want. When my daughter was young, she wanted to learn all the bones of the body when she was like in first grade. So my wife did a couple months of just how all the bones of the body is and all how the body works. And you would have never got that in school. So you can help grow your kid. You can teach your kids what they want to learn. In reality, they will learn more by doing that.
Yeah, I love that you share that for our viewers and listeners. We are also a homeschool family. I have a 21-year-old that's in Lee, and I've got a 1-year-old at the house and 4 other kids in between. And so we have homeschooled since the very beginning. And what would be like the main reason that you would choose? Is it because I guess I'm now answering the question I was about to ask you. The if you had to pick out the one main reason that you chose to pull your kids back out of public school and put them back into homeschool, what would the number one reason be?
Indoctrination. Um, someone's going to indoctrinate them, whether it's you or the public school. And when my daughter went to school, we're like, did you, because most people say your kids are weird or social, right? The whole social life. And, she was in 6 different classes with 20 different people in 6 different classes. So it wasn't even like she was in the same class with the same people. Um, you know, they all cheated off of her. One day we brought her home because she had to get her ankle worked on. And they're like literally texting pictures to her so that she could answer their math questions for her. And then, the whole social thing, it's pretty bad out there of she's like, I can get any picture of anybody you want. Just tell me and I can get their picture. And, that's not something I want my kid
Mhm.
into.
No, that's good. I was listening to Steve Weatherford's show this morning, and they were talking about the power of being able to educate your kids through homeschool, and that in reality, identity and core values shape a major portion of who your kid becomes. And when I look through my kids, at 21, 19, 17, 15, 6, and 1, my 21-year-old is doing something today that didn't come through traditional education. It came through, she loves singing. She loves playing music. And so, she's about to graduate from Lee University and she's a honor roll student, and she was a homeschool student. And when she graduates, she's going to be coaching other young ladies and young men how to use their voices to glorify God. And then I was thinking about my 19-year-old working at a coffee shop, playing the piano, worshiping the Lord at church. And then I'm thinking about my 17-year-old. She's going to go off to school to be a PT. But the trajectory, none of the things that they are pursuing is connected to what their education through traditional education provided, if that makes any sense. And
A
so,
100%. As me and my wife said, most people you could probably stop at 8th grade and you would be fine, because in high school, what are those skills that they're teaching you per se that you're taking into most of them? Like calculus. As a pressure washer, what am I using as calculus, right? What am I using that for? So,
yeah, and then getting into another conversation can be AI, and where the future is moving inside of our education. If we can grab our children and then educate them on what they need to be able to do, or the things that they're great at, there is a ton of value in trying to resource that. But with all the good things about pressure washing, is there anything that's like challenging? And then we'll move on away from the public private homeschool conversation. But what would you say is the most difficult part for anyone that might be young, starting a business? What is the hard part that we also need to be aware of?
the hardest part of a pressure washing business is the 6 inches between your ears. The mindset, can believe that you can do it, believe that you're going to get taught or showed that you need all this equipment, you need all these chemicals, you need all this stuff, and at the end of the day, it's, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe you're worth $300-400 an hour? Because if you don't believe you're worth $300-400, you're never going to ask someone for $300-400 an hour. Do you believe that you are awesome, that God did create you, and you are an amazing person? Do you believe that? Because if you don't, you will never be successful in the end of this, in this business. So the hardest part of this is this up here, because we can tell ourselves that I suck. We can tell ourselves that I'm not good enough. I told myself for years that I can't write, and I struggle with writing, but you know what? There's AI tools out there that make me sound amazing. So it's not that I got to do it all, but can I get through the mindset of being successful and doing it? And even I've been reading the book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. I would 100%. It's a great book. And he actually talks about in his later chapters, in like 13 or 14, about saying it every night, saying those words of affirmation to yourself over and over and over.
Yeah, that's so good. Why do you think we fail to think about our mindset when we're starting a business? Why do you think most pressure washing dudes or dudettes who start a pressure washing company forget about the mindset?
Because it's not something that we're taught. And so it's something that as you become more successful, you learn that your mindset can make you do anything, right? If you put your mind to something, you set your goals, you put your trajectory, you aim where you're shooting for, you can get so much further than all equipment and this and that. And we don't have no ways. We're just shooting every which way at that point.
Yeah. So if you were coaching somebody, or if somebody's watching or listening now and they're asking the question, how do I focus, or how do I work on my mindset? What advice would you give them?
So one would be, start learning about it, because if we are uneducated about it and how it works, then obviously we don't understand the ways of getting it. So my biggest thing is start listening to things. I try to, like, usually like in the morning, I still listen to YouTube of motivational speakers or something that's like, or talk about discipline and just different things like that to keep you thinking about what you need to do. And also one of the other things is get around successful people, right? You become the 5 people you're around. And if you're the top of the 5 people you're around, you're not going anywhere. But when you when you lose your 5 friends and you become 5 new friends and you're the bottom of it, you only got one way to go, but that's up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that kind of brings me to where we first met. I believe it was inside the BBB. Would that be right?
That is correct.
And what does the BBB stand for?
Bourbon, BS, and I don't even remember business.
Yeah, that's it. And so we both met inside of a business network, largest gathering of seven-figure pressure washing companies. And I saw this tall, massive, and influential individual walk in the room that I recognized from YouTube, and it was you. And I didn't know where you were with like the Lord or with faith, but I felt like there was something common there. Where are you? Are you open to talk about faith?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So would you mind sharing maybe your faith story with those who might be listening?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of got one of the boring ones. I grew up in a Christian home. I got saved when I was like 8 years old, and I we always went to church. When I was younger, it was a little bit tougher because my dad. We went to a couple other churches, and he used to beat the living hell out of us. And then when I became 8, 9 years old, we actually went to another church here. It used to be called Fellowship of Believers. It's called Seven Hills. It's one of the big churches up here in northern Kentucky. And he kind of changed. We did a lot of outdoor stuff with the church, and I was in Royal Rangers, so I got my gold medal of achievement, if anybody knows anything about that. And then, I've been on several mission trips. I've been to Haiti 4 or 5 times. I've been to Mexico doing mission trips. So I'm a type of person that I love to help people, and I believe that comes from a lot of my beliefs and all of that.
Yeah, you just mentioned something a little bit that might be important to just dive in for a second. When you look back to when you were 7, 8 years old and your dad was a little bit hard on you, you said beat the living tar out of you. What do you think was driving that behavior inside of your dad? And then what would you say changed him? And then thirdly, how does that affect the way that you raise your kids?
So I think that it came from his father because he got the same thing. And then when we started going to another church, he started going to the men's breakfast, and people started talking into him and speaking into him. And that's where he changed the most, when he got around other men, because at that point he really wasn't around other men that was speaking into him and uplifting in him and challenging him. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point they challenged him to start teaching the Royal Rangers for the 9-year-olds. And, he never would have done that otherwise. And so I think that challenge and getting around other men had helped that process.
Yeah, let me dive in before you keep on moving to the next question. As far as like the third one would be how that has affected um, your mindset as it relates to raising your kids. But if you are listening or you're watching today and you're the dude or you're the young lady who ends up absolutely losing it when you get frustrated or you get angry and you don't control your temper, let me encourage you. Um, Join a community, join somebody or a group of people and find help. We believe that we need to stop or to break the cycles inside of our lives that we've been given. Jason, you don't know it, maybe you do, but similar story as far as like fatherlessness and growing up on the streets, and I've had crazy drugs and different things in my past. Those cycles can be broken, and it's so critical that we do, because if we have wounds from our fathers, we're going to pass those wounds on to our children, and the cycle needs to stop somewhere. And so if you are listening and you're like, man, sometimes I lose it, sometimes I'm cussing out, sometimes I'm throwing things, sometimes I'm abusing or continuing the cycle, there's hope. There is a place that you can go. And I would say just, straight up is you can hit your knees and you can pray. You're never more than one step away from asking God to help you with it. And then surround yourself with other godly people that are going to encourage you to break it. Don't isolate, run to people that can end up helping you with it. so our children and our children's children can experience breakthrough inside of our lives. And so thank you for sharing that, Jason.
Yep.
How has that impacted maybe the way that you raise your kids?
So I have two girls, which my oldest, I've never really had to do anything, but my youngest is not the easiest. She reminds me of my middle brother. He got beat the worst, but he was one of those types of people that, like, he would get beat one day and do the same thing next day and just sit there and take it, right? Because we didn't understand things back then like we do now. And so with my youngest daughter, we've learned that, she does have huge feelings. Like, it's huge love, man. It's huge, but man, there's also huge anger, right? And it's how do you teach that, or how do you learn so you can discipline on that, but not get crazy in doing it. And one thing that I don't like doing, but like if she gets going, I have to get dominant and like take over that situation. Might have to get loud. There has been times that I'll smack her on the leg just to snap it, but I have to control the anger. A lot of times I got to take a deep breath, take a minute or two before I discipline. And then it's loving after that fact, right? I had to do this because you were doing it. And as she's getting older, she's starting to understand how to control her anger. And we're trying to help her understand how to control her anger too. So
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I've got, of course, 6 kids. If you only have one child, you may feel like you're the expert on all things if they turn out right. But if you keep having kids, you realize that you're not the expert, and, it's the kid, not necessarily your ability to raise them. And so inside of the church, I often shared with parents that they shouldn't take too much credit or too much blame for how our kids end up responding to this thing called life. And I have a 6-year-old, Jason. His name is Judah. And when he gets angry, he turns into the Incredible Hulk. Have you ever watched the old school Hulk series where it's like, ding, and his eyes turn green? And next thing you know, his breathing changes and his facial expressions change. And this morning, Lord convicted me on it. This morning, I pulled him to the side. And because I feel like God had been working on me as far as I've got to get this under wraps. How do I say that? I need to get that under. How would you say it in Kentucky?
how do you get that under wrap, I guess?
Yeah, there you go. I was thinking like, how do you tie it down? Or there would be some other slang term here. But he wants a chameleon, and he's saving up for a chameleon, which means he also has to have a tank and sand and a tree and, different things inside of it. And I called him to the side this morning and I said, "Hey, buddy, I got to deal with you. You know how sometimes that you get Hulk smash angry?" And he's like, "Yes, Dad, I get Hulk smash angry." And I said, "All right, so this is what I want to do. I want to give you $1. I know you're saving up for this chameleon. I want to give you $1 every time that you choose not to get angry, but you choose to love." And so who makes you the angriest in the house? Gabriel and Jira. They smash my Legos and bully me around. This is Judah. And I said, okay, when you feel that feeling, if you end up responding with love and grace versus Hulk smash, I'm going to give you $1. It'll be a check mark on the board. So today I've got on a chalkboard wall, cash, Judah in the middle. And he gets one line for every time that me and Mom notice that he's not doing Hulk smash, because I wanted to reinforce good behavior and then also reinforce negative behavior. And then I said, and then when you go Hulk smash, when you raise your voice, your eyes and face turn, because we did a devotion that God is slow to anger. And so we've got to learn how to be slow inside of this anger. We're going to subtract it. And so he is playing in his mind. He said, "Dad, which one is $1?" And so you can pull out the dollar bills like, okay, that's more than a quarter and a dime and a nickel and a penny. And so now on the wall, we are going to try to solve this thing of his behavior. And this might be funny, but it's actually something that is essential in raising children who are going to be good children. Because if you don't get it now, he'll end up carrying on. As a 6-year-old, if it turns in 8 and 10 and 12, we both have seen, Jason, those who have not been corrected to proper behavior who ends up having to learn the hard way, and we've got to knock it out while they're young. Does that make any sense to you?
Oh yeah, like my brother, he can't keep a job more than 3 or 4 months because he turns into the hawk of, nobody wants to work with him. He gets laid off, whatever. He's a journeyman electrician, so he works all over the country, but he only worked there for 3 or 4 months and then to the next job. So he can't keep a job more than 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. So if we can be of any help to anybody, encourage you, set up ways. First, make sure you know that your kids are going to follow what you're doing, not what you say. And so make sure you model the behavior you want to see in them, and then try to reinforce, be an intentional father, be an intentional dude. All right. So Jason, let's do this. Tell everyone a little bit about your pressure washing journey from, how long ago, what age, startup, how much maybe you did in your first, second year, to getting to a point where you maybe sold it, to what you're doing now.
So when I first started, I was a full-time fireman. I was sitting in on the recliner like we do as full-time firemen, and there was a guy that walked in and he's like, "Man, I'm gonna start a pressure washing business." At this point, we were poor, we were in debt. My wife did work at Toyota, but between the two of us, we made like $65,000 a year, not a whole lot between the two of us. And so we was struggling. We had probably $30,000 in debt, $40,000 in debt. And so as I was sitting on the couch or the recliner and talking about starting a pressure washing business, I was like, "Dude, you're nuts." Well, up to this point, like I had said, I struggle at writing, which AI helps me a lot out on that. But I also struggled with reading. Like if it don't have pictures, I wasn't reading it. And so this was in 2011 and 12ish. And so back then there wasn't as much information on YouTube. Like there was very few people on YouTube at that point. Michael Crisley was kind of the big one on YouTube that kind of started the YouTube stuff. And so I followed him, and he's out of Lexington, Kentucky, and I was following him a lot. And through that process is how I started to grow and learn about my pressure washing business. My first year, I think I did like $12,000 or $15,000. 2013, I doubled that. I was like $36,000. And so at this point, I was like, all right, how can I grow this thing and make money? So I had started doing Christmas lights in 2014. So that way I could have employees all year long. And through this, we did a little over almost 100,000, I believe it was, in 2014, 2016, 17. We ended up getting it to $1 million in the next 2 or 3 years. We 10x what we did. We looked at how our numbers was, and at the time we started learning about our numbers. A lot of times we don't know our numbers. We don't have a clue about our numbers. We don't know anything about our numbers. And I was that way. Like, I hate numbers. Numbers suck, but numbers are what grows your business. And so through that process, I was like, you know what? My average ticket's like $400 at this time. It wasn't a lot, but this was in 2016. 2015, I was like, my numbers are $500 for my average ticket. And right now I'm only spending like $200 a month in AdWords. If I bump that up, to $1,000 or $2,000, I'll be able to get a lot more leads, which will drive my business. And that's what I did. And so I ended up doing 500,000 in pressure washing that year and 500,000 in Christmas lights in 2017. So 2017, we did $1 million. I sold the business in 2018. We had an offer. I did bring a business partner in 2013, 14. And then we sold it, and because he didn't want to be in business no more with us. So we sold it. And then from there, I went to started teaching people how to start and grow pressure washing and Christmas light businesses, because it is something that I love to help people, and I've always had the love to help people. So, I always believe that if my goal now in life is if I can help 1,000 people make $100,000 a year, it will change their life, literally.
Mm-hmm.
I have several people that I've taught that I got over 1,000 videos on YouTube that I give away a lot of this stuff for free. And so it's just a matter of you taking action and making it happen.
That's so good. And I wrote down three things that you said that I want to hear more about. You went from 100K to $1 million in a few years. If you were to pick out one nugget of truth to share with our listener or someone that's watching, what is the one piece? What's one thing you would say that you learn from that situation that you would teach somebody else?
It's marketing. It's marketing, and it's marketing, right? I mean, that's what got us there. A lot of times we think it's the rigs, we think it's the equipment, it's the chemicals, it's how to. Another thing will get you there too. Leadership. You got to become a good leader, because if you're not a good leader, you're not going to be able to lead other people. So learn how to be a good leader. John, I lost his name. John Maxwell, right? He's got 80 books on leadership. Start reading them. It will help you out. And that is probably the biggest thing, because when you suck at leadership, you're not going to be able to lead other people that will help you. When you got 4 crews running, actually, I have a good friend that he was supposed to hit 100,000 this year, or last month in May, his first 100,000, and he hit it at 90. And he's like, Jason, you're right. When you have this little problem here when you're at little, when you go to big, all it does is put a big magnifying glass on that problem. So
that's so good. Marketing and leadership. So invest more inside of marketing and then invest more inside your own leadership. And is there any tricks in, what if you hate reading? Like if I want to grow in my leadership, so I grab some Maxwell books and I have dyslexia, or I'm a slow reader and it takes me like forever to read one page. What advice would you give to our listener?
Why do you keep talking at me? Because that's me, right? I cannot read. Like I got this book and I cannot read it. I don't read this book. I listen to it. So I'm a big audio learner. Like I listen, and that's the thing, right? Everybody learns differently. You can either read it and do it, listen to it, or you might have to listen and see to it. So I do know some people that will put an audio in and then actually read it as they go through, as it's reading to them. But I'm a big audio guy, especially during this. When I first started, when I was still at the firehouse, I was an hour away. I was a Georgetown fireman, so I was an hour from where I was. So I got to listen for an hour down and an hour back every third day. So
that's good. And for 10, $15, you can basically have Dan Sullivan, John Maxwell, what's his name, Donald Miller. You can have these different coaches for $15. You can have all of their information right here inside of your head.
And a lot of these books you can get free on YouTube, but I say pay for it if you can, because if you don't invest in yourself, if you're not willing to invest in yourself and bet on yourself, then nobody is. Yes, you can get them for free, and yes, there's a lot on YouTube that you can literally get for free. But in the end, you will learn more by when you open your wallet. And I know that's a lot of people don't like to think that way, but if you don't have any money at all, don't make an excuse of $10 is too much, because you can literally go on YouTube and get it for free.
Yeah, facts. And so thank you for sharing that. I think it's essential. What you're giving away is high value. And if you're listening today, don't just listen, but apply. Go ahead and grab your first leadership book. Jason, if you had one book that you would give away to every single listener, what one book would you give away?
Honestly, The Ultimate Sales Machine is one that hits on a lot of different things that I would do. But if you're just starting out, there's the E-Myth is one that I agree, or that will help you. But on leadership, the 21 laws of I can't even say it, of a leader from John Maxwell, any of John Maxwell's books, but that's one that really takes and hits on a lot of points that I like.
Jason, what's cool is that if you aren't a very good reader or a very good writer, then there's a guy named Dan Sullivan. He oversees Strategic Coach, 2,500 plus coaches, and they did a survey, and about 55% of them, by the way, their total combined worth is somewhere around $1 trillion or more, and 55% of them are like 4th grade type readers, but every one of them is a learner. And so don't let your failures or the things you're not good at trump the things that you are great at. And whatever I listen to, and I bet you it's the same for you, Jason, when you listen to something, you're all in it, and you can be actually transformed through just listening to somebody else coach you. And so it's super powerful. And so you're
Yeah.
in good company if you are a slow reader, or if you have a reading disability or are unable to write. You're in great situation to still educate yourself through Audible. Let me ask you this. You said you sold your pressure washing company. Just looking back, I know you wouldn't be doing what you're doing now. Okay. So let's take that away. But if you could go back and do something differently rather than sell the company, would you?
I probably wouldn't have. But now that I did, and it was the best thing ever, right? Because I get to help other people more than just clean their house. Because you are helping people when you clean their house. You are doing the things that people need done that you're actually doing. But this here, I love it so much because I love seeing those light bulb moments for people.
All right. So how do you define success?
Success is not money, because you can lose it all in an instant. But I define success as in learning and getting to hitting my goals for what I want to reach. Everybody's goals are different. And if you haven't set any goals, then you're never going to hit success. And if you think money is success, so I actually had a coach, and that where this come from, because it kind of made me think, because I was like, I want to do another $1 million, or I want to do this. And it was like, that's not success, right? Success is learn. I think it's that roadmap at the end of the year, at the end of the life, that we can look back and said, you know what? I had two awesome kids. They're awesome in their life. Um, I help other people, and I can look at their success. And that's what I think success is at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's good. And why do you think we sometimes measure success by numbers?
Well, I mean, that's just right. That's what we do, because numbers don't lie, obviously.
Okay.
But they can lie if you put the wrong numbers in. So,
Yeah. And so I appreciate you sharing. For anyone that listening, is success may not be what numbers you hit, but might be who you are while you're hitting those numbers. And so I appreciate you sharing. I'm going to ask you maybe three more questions, and then we're going to find out what your handles are. And so the next question is really deep. Would you mind sharing maybe two or three, or maybe one dark moment that you've gone through in your life, and then how you got out of it?
um, yeah, I don't have too much. I try to stay positive, but I did get divorced before I got my married on this one. So I'm on number two. And that was a pretty low moment. That, you think that you found the right person, and
Mm,
you didn't match well for whatever. I was young and dumb, and that when I got married the first time. So that was pretty rough on me. It wasn't in business as much, but
mm,
business wise, probably after I sold the business, that was a little bit of a low moment of, how
mm,
things are going to work. What am I going to do next? What's next in it for me. But I didn't stay there very long. It's just a
mm,
matter of, all right, this is it. We're going to make it happen, and we're going to
mm.
keep going through. We're going to keep pushing through and get through this.
Yeah. So I heard you say two things, but they're both the same. After major transitions, there seems to have been a low moment, transitioning, from a relationship and transitioning from a career. If someone is inside of an unhealthy marriage or just went out of a divorce, what encouragement would you give to that viewer or listener?
It's not the end of the world. I know a lot of times we put all our eggs in one basket and we think that's the thing. But it's not the end of the world. Talk out, it's back to what we talked about earlier, is get around other people, get around other men that can help you. Or if you're a female, around other female that will talk life into you. Don't get around negative people. Stay away from those, but get around positive people, and you will find much better. I wouldn't trade my wife in now for the world. She is my best friend, and so we have two beautiful kids. We have an awesome family, and I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't trade now in for nothing. So get around other people and let
Mm,
people talk into your life.
yeah, so good. When you're in, when you're in a dark spot, sometimes you don't realize that there is a future in front of you. And so, if you're listening today, if you're watching, I want to remind you that the experiences that are taking place in your life today doesn't have to define what experiences are taking place tomorrow. You can get up out of the pit, you can work yourself out. It's not forever, it's temporary, but you can continue to pursue. And so, thank you for sharing that. What big goals do you have now in front of you? So you've got two beautiful daughters, beautiful wife. You're growing a is it an outdoor lighting training seminar or business, or what big goals do you have in front of you now?
So my goal is, like I said, to help 1,000 people make 100 grand a year. That's kind of my big goal. Um, because I
Mm,
do struggle with having goals, right? I've hit, when I first started when in 2018 and I started doing this side of the training and everything, I wrote down my BHAG goals when I was at the firehouse, and we've knocked every one of them out except the one within like 2 years. So it is something that, now it's how can not just about me, but how can I help other people and put those into my goals so that way I'm not just being about me, but I'm being about other people.
that's rich. Last time I saw you, it looked like you had lost a little bit of weight. Is that true?
Yeah. So I've actually lost a lot of weight. I am down 55 pounds. And,
Yeah.
as I was thinking about this and as I thought about it, right, whether we talk about our health is wealth, and, our business, it comes down to discipline. How can I teach people that you need to do this in business when I'm not even disciplined enough to take care of my own weight and see what I'm putting in my mouth and taking exercise? And so, I did start doing some things of changing my eating habits. I've done some things for exercise. I was getting ready to be on blood pressure medicine. My blood pressure was high. My cholesterol was getting up there. Everything was, I was on a CPAP machine. And now that I've lost 55 pounds, I've like, my blood pressure is 120 over 80, and everything comes aligned with when you be disciplined. And it's the same way with business, right? If you're not disciplined in business, you're going to struggle and you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, so rich. And can you give a couple of tips as far as, you've lost 55 pounds. And if there's someone listening and they're like, dude, I've got, 100 pounds to lose, where would you tell them to start at?
So I did the carnivore diet, just all meat. And I know some people be like, whatever, but it's helped me out a lot. I did it from another good guy that would be a great interview for you, Jeremy Main. I haven't even got him on my own interview yet, but he was literally a garbage man and started a pressure washing business. And this year he's going to do $1 million, and within 4 years you'll hit it. And so, he is one that he's been on the carnivore diet for 4 years now, and I mean he's built like a brick outhouse. So he's just, it's amazing to see how he is. So
He's crushing it. And so thank you for sharing that. Sometimes it's hard to get practical advice, like, hey, you lost it, but no one knows how.
right.
What as far as activities? Did you pick up any new activities? You throwing cornhole or darts or running from wolves or anything?
So actually, I started swimming about 3 days a week, but I made that as a challenge because as a water rescue, if you listen to Burn Off at all, he kind of talks about not just to lose weight, but what activity can you do that will actually help you do this. So one of the things that I'm working on is getting my dive instructor for water rescue. So through that, I knew I needed to swim, so I started swimming 3 days a week. And then about a month ago, I was like, you know what? I want to run. I want to run a 5K. And so I couldn't run worth to save my life. And so the other day, I actually did a mile without stopping, which was a big achievement for me, because you got to start somewhere. And so
That's good.
after a month of running about 2 to 3 days a week, I'm actually able to run a whole mile without stopping.
Hey, good work. Good work. Good work. It's so hard, man. I remember the first time you run a mile, you'd feel like you just climbed a mountain because it seems so far away to be able to do that without stopping. 2017 was the first time I ever ran a full mile, and I started like beating my chest like I'm Tarzan. And now I realize like a mile's not that far, but when you ain't ran one, it's a long ways. And so
Yep.
congratulations on that. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Take action. You're not going to get nothing happen if you don't take action. It's one of those things that it's hard a lot of times to get the ball to start rolling in the beginning. But once you start taking one step in front of the next step, it gets easier, it gets faster. And that's what success comes from, is by taking action. Because we can come up with excuses all day long. I guarantee you there's an excuse for everything out there. But taking action is smacking those excuses upside the head. So
It's awesome. We've only got about 5 more minutes. I've probably already taken more time from you than probably I should have. But what questions have I not asked that you would love to share? Is there anything that's on your heart or mind that you're like, man, there's one question I wish you would have asked because I love talking about it.
So I love talking about that you are an amazing person, right? You can do this. And no matter where you're at, you can do this. And this is not always easy. And it's kind of with what I said of taking action, right? Because you are an amazing person. You can do amazing things. If you put your mind to it, you do the things that you need to do to get things moving, you can do amazing things. And, as I teach people and as I coach people, I learn a lot myself. And what I see a lot of times is people come up with excuses to why they can't do something. Come up for reasons why you can do something and put those steps into action. If you want to do $100,000 this year, well, what are you going to do your $100,000? Well, first off, what do we got to do to get to $1,000? What do we got to do to get to $10,000? Let's break those goals down. And then that way we'll be able to get where we want to go at. For one, believe in yourself. Because a lot of times I hear people they'll say, in my area, you can't get this. And it usually comes down to money. My area, you can't get a $200 house wash is all I can get. Well, are you looking in the right places? Are you asking? Are you charging enough? Have you figured out what you need to do? So, for instance, I do in-person training, and I just came off an in-person training this weekend for people doing pressure washing and lighting side. And one of the guys was there, and we're in this neighborhood. In this neighborhood, there's about 200 or 300 homes in there. And when you pull in, they're all dirty, they're all nasty, they're all they're $300,000 homes, which $300,000 home ain't a whole lot anymore, but they're a $300,000 home. And he's like, man, this is the neighborhood I've been walking, and this is the neighborhood. I was like, this ain't our neighborhood. I was like, so we are identifying neighborhoods that are our people of, look around here. Do you see anybody that has their grass professionally mowed by a mower? No. Do you see anybody that have their landscaping done? Nope. Do you see their houses? Don't go where the dirty houses are. Go where the clean houses are. Those are the people that want their house clean and stay clean. Mm-hmm. I hear people a lot of times, they'll be like, oh, Jason, I hate going to clean houses. I love going to clean houses because you know what? You don't even have to do a whole lot, and they'll come out and it's like, wow, this looks amazing. So find your customers, find the people that are willing to help you pay for your services, because in the end, you want to know who are the worst customers. The cheap customers, the people that are $200, $300 they will complain more than the person that pays $1,000. So get your average ticket up and figure out how to get your average ticket up. I teach people, they're getting their average ticket up to $800 to $2,000 and everywhere in between. How do you do that? By asking, by being professional, by having amazing customer service, and taking action.
I think we just hit something you're super passionate about. And so when you just shared, you went off like a machine gun, shooting those answers. Jason, one thing that brought to my mind is limiting beliefs about yourself. And so when you talked about believing that you're good enough, believing that you're worthy, I remember growing up, I had a mindset that thought the rich kids worked at McDonald's. I, Jason, I kid you not. When I was a kid, I didn't think I was worthy to work at McDonald's. I worked at KFC, Burger King, and some like other greasy spots. And I was like, because I was hood, I thought that I didn't deserve to be where hood wasn't. And McDonald's had benefits, and I had to work at spots that didn't have benefits. And when I got saved, I ended up working inside the church, and I ended up being around wealthy people and unwealthy people. And I realized we're just all people. And so it was like getting past this mindset of like, there's people better than me or people lower than me. I come to the conclusion there's people, everybody's just like me, and we're
Mm.
just people. And so I love the way that you're sharing that information and trying to encourage our listeners to say, man, you're worthy. You're beautiful. And so it's so powerful.
I want to add one more thing to this too, since you know you can have a poor mentality, right? That's a big thing, but you can have a church mentality too. That's a poor mentality. A lot of times I grew up in the church, and you were taught, money is evil. You that's
Mm,
kind of was the thing. Money's evil, right? They must have money because they're evil. No, they're not, right? I've heard it. The love of money is evil. They got all those toys and they don't come to church, and that must mean they're evil. No, the Bible teaches about wealth. Proverbs is all about wisdom and wealth and how to, what do quit reading those verses of money's evil, and
yeah,
and it talks about setting a vision, and it talks about how success is, and King Solomon was one of the richest kings, and it's one of those things that a lot of times we get taught this stuff over here in that poor mentality type mentality, and it's like, you know what, you are awesome, you are an amazing person, God
yeah.
created you, and you are an amazing person, you're an amazing creature. God don't make mistakes, because a lot of times we think I must have been a mistake. You're not a mistake, I promise you that.
That's so good. And for whatever reason, Jason, I was one of those people. I thought, I thought people that had money did something evil because like Satan must have gave them the money to sell their souls. Like literally my brain set at a certain point in my time when I was a kid was like, if you got money, you must have done something wrong and the devil's giving it to you. And it's like, you only say that until you, because you don't know the people that do have money. And once you meet them, they're more generous, they're better stewards, they have a different belief system than a poverty mindset that I was growing up with. And I cannot agree with you more. And I appreciate you speaking that truth to the lives of those that are watching or listening. So we're going to wrap up. And Jason, I'd like for you to share how people can get in touch with you, how they can find more information about who you are and what you're doing.
So you can go check out either King of Pressure Wash is my pressure wash site, or christmaslights.io. That's where I teach about Christmas lights. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, I'm everywhere on those, underneath those things of either King of Pressure Wash or christmaslights.io. And you'll be able to find me anywhere. So,
Well, Jason, it's been a privilege to have you on the Pressure Washing Pastors show. You've been a brilliant influence inside of many people's lives, and I bless you. My hope is that you are able to continue to bless and to help over 1,000 and more make. Did you say $100,000 a year?
$100,000 a year.
Let's go. And so, thank you so much. God bless. You have a good day.
Thank you.
Peace.